Hey everyone, today we're going to work on the 2AR powered MR2 Spyder. We're going to make it a little bit faster, and we're going to do that by making the driver more comfortable. It's surprising when you're doing endurance racing how much driver comfort can lead to better lap times. And before we get started, this isn't sponsored. I bought it with my own money, but I do expect to be pretty darn thrilled with it. There is a link in the description if you want to get your own. It's not an affiliate link. It's not a sponsored link. It's just a link to the site because I don't have any connections with them. But as far as I understand, this is really the only game in town if you want a system like this. What this is, it's a fully self-contained air conditioning system. And it's even got a quick release from the bracket on the bottom so you can pull it out of the car when you don't need it. The whole thing weighs about 11 pounds. Which is a whole lot lighter than having the full air conditioning system in here. And if you're racing your car, often you have to do so with the windows open, and your air conditioning system isn't going to keep up anyway. So what this does, it hooks up with coolant lines right here to a shirt, which is about as nasty as it looks because you're only wearing this when you're sweating the most, and it plugs in right into the side. Now, these connectors are the same gender, but that doesn't matter. There's a manifold in the car. So this means, like many race car parts, this isn't suitable for your street car. But here's the thing. If you do want this lovely 2AR FE swap in here, and by the way, this right now with no internal modifications is making 205 wheel horsepower. That's just with the tune that I currently sell, and it's bolted on with all the parts. There's nothing different here than what you would have if you did it in your own car. But I'm currently in the finalizing step. This is a 3D printed version of the AC bracket so that you'll be able to retain stock AC. Now, in a race car, this is extra weight. I don't need it, and I wouldn't get as much cooling as I do from the cool shirt system. So, what we're going to do, we're going to take this system here, and we're going to install it right behind the driver's seat in the position that the evap system used to go to. So, let's go back there and check it out. So I'm going to mount this down here. You've got the evap system here for the stock Spyder. Normally bolts down right like that, and that's an awfully convenient 3 reinforced mounting points. And if you take the base plate for the ChillOut system, you'll notice that it conveniently fits right in that area with plenty of space around the bolts. Now, they do want the system to be elevated, and there's some features on the floor there that I kind of want to get away from. But otherwise, those 3 mounting bolts are actually all in plane, so that'll make it convenient. And I did test. This bracket is steel, so I think I'm just going to weld to it, actually. And we're also going to do some weight reduction on this, because for a product that claims to be light, this bracket sure is heavy. It feels like about 2 pounds, which out of an 11-pound system seems excessive. All right. All right, this is bugging me too much. I took a stop at the scale on the way over to the bench, and that bracket actually is 2 pounds. That's unacceptable. So we're going to make a quick stop at the mill and take care of that. All right, now let's go to the bench. All right, so we've cut about half the weight off the bracket. It's about 1.1 pounds now. And really, in the dimensions we care about, it's not any weaker. So we're going to take a quick pattern of this. Keep in mind, our holes are going to be oversized. We don't need this to be exact. And so we don't forget, front of the vehicle's that way. And these clamps are on that side. So about like that. So I have a brake, but I noticed with where this stuff is, I'm actually just going to cut this channel diagonally in half, and that'll give me everything I need. All right, we're going to watch out a bit on this side because there's a clip that goes in here. And we'll raise it up. Yeah, I like that. All right, let's get some holes in this one. They need to be this far apart. I want to get a little further inboard. All right, drill press. That should work, especially since there's a little wiggle room in there. Let me trim these brackets down a little bit, and then we'll weld them on. Got to get the powder coating off so we can weld to it. And they were serious about the powder coating on that thing. That thing is thick. But let's get the welder over here. Okay, and just as it was showing on here, it's a smidge wide. And you can kind of see that. See if we center these two. We look here, the hole's actually a little bit here, so what we'll do, weld the inside first. We'll pull it in just a little bit. And if it pulls it in too much, that's what this guy's for. There we go. It's not going anywhere. And by the way, I haven't turned this thing on yet, but as far as I can tell, based on the blade orientation, this side is the exhaust, and that was intentional. If somehow I was wrong, I'm going to want to flip it around so it's not blowing that hot air that it just took away from the driver back onto the driver. So great. Let me take this off, put a coat of paint on the bracket, and then we can get started on the electrical. Yeah, I'm out of black, but gray will work. I just need something so it doesn't turn to rust so quick. This is not a pretty car. And by the way, that back there, that's the AC system. This is a 2AR. This is the system that you'll actually want on a street car. That's the project that I'm working on right now, and hopefully get a part for that here soon. That'll work. Let's get back to the car. And we just tighten our shiny new bracket down. Now let's go to the bench and talk about the wiring. That reservoir really isn't very big. I hope we don't lose too much as we're racing. The shirts all get pre-filled, but the dry brake connectors always leak. So it was supposed to include a clear hose, but I did not find it in there. And now I see that my system is routed in 3/8 and not quarter. So the way these projects go, guess I'm running to the hardware store. See you guys in a bit. All right, it's a few days later, and I got an order in from McMaster Car. I figured I'd do that way I could get the proper UV resistant line instead of whatever was on the shelf at the hardware store. And at the same time, instead of having an adapter, I just ordered the quick connects with a 1/4 inch instead of the 3/8 line that's on here right now. So let's just put that on. So we got to figure out which one of these is the pressure out. So let's try this one first. Okay. So the top one is the feed out. Let's flip them so we can purge the other line real quick. Now what I'm about to do is a process I'm going to have to repeat with all of the shirts. The shirts currently contain just water, so they need to be purged. Well, it's already coming out blue, so I'm going to plug that in. Refill the tank, circulate until all the air bubbles are out. Let me put this on and we'll do a functionality test. And normally there'd be a driving suit that would hold this closer to your skin anyways. But I'm going to have to start the car to not drain the battery, and more on that in a minute actually. All right, so that works wonderful. As you can see the pictures, it was dropping temperature. It takes a few minutes to get down to temperature. I don't know what it can ultimately sustain, but they're making it sound like it can maintain 35 degrees in some pretty warm temperature. And from what I'm noticing right here, 35 degrees is not where I'm going to want to have it set at anyways. This is a distinct advantage that I'm already noticing over the cooler full of ice in the passenger seat. The cooler full of ice in the passenger seat circulates water at 32 degrees. It pretty much doesn't matter what. So there was a switch here. And even when we were racing down in Texas, we would have to sit there and you'd cool every once in a while. But most of the time you'd leave it off because it was so cold that it was uncomfortable. This has the ability of being set at a specific temperature, which is going to be super nice when it's warm out there. And even like the race that we're doing at the end of June at Gingerman, it's going to be, in the mid 80s, which is going to be hot, but we normally wouldn't run a cool shirt system because that would just make us too cold. But we'll be able to run this and it'll make us a lot more comfortable. So the other thing is, you may have noticed how much the car struggled to start. The battery in this thing is about the size of a lawnmower battery. And when you first start up this system, it wants to cool things down as quick as possible. So it's going to sit there and probably take right near that 30 amp maximum that they claim it does. I haven't put an ammeter on it, but I can tell based on how slow it's starting that it's just dropping the battery voltage too much. The other issue I'm seeing so far is if you have the system on before the driver plugs in, which right now that's how it goes, it throws a water flow error and the system won't turn on until you cycle the ignition, which is not acceptable. Now I did get the remote, which I could put up here, but you have to hold the power down for several seconds, and I don't really like that. The system does remember if it's on or off. So I want to make it so that this switch turns the whole system on and off, so that, as with currently, like, we won't bother plugging in the driver until he's been sent out. It's too critical to get our pits quick enough so the driver can easily, without looking, plug himself in and then turn the system on. The other thing we need to address is it's really struggling to start the car with that system as well. And by the way, that little bit of water spray there has me a bit concerned. The tank is only about 100 milliliters or so, and I don't know how low it can go while still pumping. And we're doing endurance racing with this car, and like worst case scenario is going to be a 24-hour race. And on a 24-hour race, right now we're running about an hour and 3/4 fuel tank. So you're looking at what, 14 driver changes or so. I'm not sure if the losses from 14 driver changes can make it so that that thing is still full and running. Now, of course, we can top it off on a pit stop, but that takes time. I'd really rather not do that. So we might have to hack a bigger tank into that at some point. Not for this June race, though. This June race, first of all, it's not going to be so warm that we absolutely need these. And second, the longest day is a 9.5-hour day. So there shouldn't be nearly as many. It's going to be, 4 or 5 driver changes during that 9.5-hour day. So I think it'll handle that. I'm just not sure it's going to take, 12 or 14 of them. All right, let's go to the bench. So let's talk a little bit. This guy here, this remote, this USB connection, I don't want that in my race car. I really don't. I actually opened it up in case it was something easy that I could kind of snag that circuit board and do something with it, but there's a lot more electronics in here than you would imagine. I don't like it. A couple reasons. First of all, the power button's got like a 5 or 6 second delay on actually doing anything, which is not great when you've got a corner coming up. And, this isn't being used for a track day car. This is being used for an endurance race car, and you don't have the luxury of coming in. You got to go out until your tank of fuel's run out. And if this thing's got an error message, it'd be awfully nice to be able to cycle it without having to, take your hand off the steering wheel for 10 seconds. So I want to be able to use just that toggle switch. Now, conveniently, I think the features of the last release, the firmware, they said that it remembers the state that it was in. So if it was on and you give it power, it turns back on. And after a little bit of testing, it looks like if it was on but in an air state and you power cycle it, it'll get out of that air state and try again. So if I just put the toggle switch to flip it on and off, it'll actually just come back on, and you can just do it with a quick flip off and a quick flip on, and you're good to go. Now there might be a little bit of cool down time in there for capacitors on the circuit board to discharge, but either way, it's not a big deal that it takes 10, 20 seconds for the system to come back on. It's just a big deal that you keep your hands off the wheel for that long. So this way, flip it off, give it a second, flip it back on, you're good to go. I can talk the guys on the radio over that. The other thing is the fusible link. I came to my senses. Fusible link is great, but if there's an issue with the car, it takes down the entire car. So what we've got here, 40 amp maxi fuse. We're going to put that in line. The other thing we're going to do is to switch the power. We're going to use a German relay rated to 40 amps. Then this is where things are going to get a bit trickier. This is actually one of my MR2 Spyder circuit boards. It's a previous version than what I sell. There's a bug on here, but it doesn't matter. We're actually not going to use all this part. We're just going to cut it off right here. And there's a transistor and a couple resistors right here. That's what we need. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to hook it up so that when the alternator is not charging, so if the alternator light is on, it's going to flip this relay off. And this is going to control the low side of the coil, and then the high side of the coil will be controlled by the switch that the driver controls. And that'll make it so if there's ever a charging system issue, it's not going to matter. This system's going to shut down and potentially actually give the driver enough ignition time to get into the pits, because as it is, this thing will kill a battery in less than a lap. So let me throw that together. All right, and there's our small control board. Go test it before we go any further. Now both of these wires should need to be 12 volts to enable. For testing purposes, we've got 12 volts right here. And of course, this is dead with the kill switch off, so nothing. Let's turn the kill switch on. Okay, you can hear the power steering pump, but nothing else. But then when I hit this, this should turn on. Okay, so that turned on. And then just to check, so this right here is the enable wire. This is the switch, so if the switch is on, it doesn't affect anything. If the enable wire is on its own, it doesn't affect anything. But if they're on together, it works. All right, so let me wire this. All right, let's check the functionality. So, kill switch on. That does nothing. Now if we start the car, we still have nothing. And that turned it on. Now it's in an error state. But if you plug a shirt in, we cycle it. It cycles real quick. And is it running? There you go. I can hear it running. All right, temperature's dropping. All right. Well, I got to clean up some wiring. You know, obviously, I can't do that. But I'm going to do that off camera, and also I'm going to add the max fuse to that. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the system. I wish they would have given us a disable input. I think that would have been really nice, especially given how much current it draws. Or maybe at a minimum, like a configurable startup delay of some kind. 5 to 10 seconds, I think, would give me enough time to hit the switch, and hit the start button. Then again, I'm not really convinced that this kind of car is their intended application, so got to take that with a grain of salt. Most cars on the track these days still have full-size batteries, or they have really expensive lithium batteries that have plenty of capacity. But either way, I'm pretty thrilled to have air conditioning in my beater race car. So I'm going to have fun racing next week. You guys have a good one. Oh, and by the way, if you want air conditioning in your Spyder, this bracket here is what you actually want, which I'll be selling soon. You don't want this for your street car. Have a good day.